Awesome. Looks like we are officially live and some folks are piling in here. So we'll give it just a few minutes as we do on every one of these, just so anybody who's still trying to log in and attend has an extra minute. In the meantime, we were talking a little bit about it. Did any of your guys' credit cards get dinged with Arizona? Anybody hunting Arizona this year?
Well, I'm not hunting, but my kid drew a random tag for archery, so that'll be fun. We have a good trip down there.
Nice. Yeah, that'll be exciting. What are the dates on that? Is that a mid-September?
Yes, it's like I believe it's the 13th through the 26th of September. So it should be right in the peak of the rut, I hope.
Nice. Yeah, I don't know too many people that are headed to Arizona this year, but I'm excited to see how you guys end up doing. Cool. Looks like a lot of folks a few more folks are still trickling in, but we'll kind of kick this thing underway. We've got a lot to cover tonight. Everything tonight's going to be around mule deer. The experts on the call at Huntin are going to dive into different states and different opportunities, when to use your points, etc. So we've got a full night scheduled. We're going to try to keep it around an hour, and then as always, we'll address all the questions at the end. So a couple quick housekeeping things. If you guys want questions to be answered live at the end of this, make sure that you're dropping those in the actual Q&A spot below. Don't use the chat. Use the chat to let us know, where you guys are tuning in from, chat amongst yourselves. But as far as like the actual questions that you want the Huntin' folks to answer, use the Q&A, and we'll get to as many of those as possible, and so on and so forth. So a couple other quick things. All your onX personal account needs, if you guys have questions about, you forgot your password or you need help or assistance with onX, make sure that you're emailing help@onxmaps.com. It's just a lot more efficient way for us to get you what you need taken care of there. And one more thing, we are doing a giveaway at the end of this, so stick around for that. If you're watching this after it's live, on the February 27th, you obviously are not eligible for that giveaway. So a couple things there. With that, I will kick it over to Austin.
Sweet. Thanks, Dylan. Well, we'll introduce ourselves a little bit. You've seen some of us here before, but I'm Austin Atkinson, one in the middle here on this fancy slideshow we put together for you. But I live here in Cedar City, worked at Huntin' for 9 years, and I love hunting mule deer. I have been fortunate enough to kill mule deer in quite a few different states, but I'm kind of an opportunist and I struggle holding out for those really big bucks. I see a nice mature deer, I like to kill it, take it home. They're all so unique and very different, and I just feel fortunate to hunt them.
My name's Garth Jensen. I think I've been hunting for 9 or 10 years now. I too have a very deep passion for mule deer. That's what I kind of grew up, cut my teeth on hunting. Yeah, I've really appreciated be fortunate enough to work here and to allow me to travel to different states and hunt deer. Yeah, I've got a point in my life where I kind of like to be a little bit more selective, but I'll tell you what, the last part of the hunt rolls around, I see a nice mature buck. It's pretty hard for me to hold off the trigger. But yeah, it's one thing that I really, really do enjoy about hunting is just getting after mule deer.
Logan Hedges here, up in Wyoming. Born and raised up here. Love mule deer. I was lucky enough to be born in some of the best mule deer country. Well, used to be some of the best mule deer country. Yeah, been hunting them ever since I can remember. My dad hauled me around all over, and yeah, just love to hunt them. Love how unique they are. Been fortunate enough to kill some good bucks, guide some guys on some really good bucks over the years, and just really enjoy trying to outsmart an old smart muley up on, especially in his country. So yeah, lots of just excited for a few more opportunities before I get too old too.
Yep, and like these guys, I grew up mule deer hunting Montana. I've always been a resident in Montana. I was born here, still live here. And I love mule deer hunting. And thanks to the folks on this call specifically, I'm starting to branch out and hunting other states. That picture of that buck on top is one of my best bucks. That was a Colorado hunt. Um, First time hunting Colorado, and literally relied on the expertise and knowledge of the Huntful folks to be able to apply there. Know I was putting my points into a good tag, and as you can see, have a big grin on my face because of it. So I'm excited to hunt mule deer in some new states and learn in the next coming slides, just like the rest of you guys.
Sweet. So a couple things I wanted to mention here. We've done some master classes and we've got more planned, more coming up. So you can always go back to YouTube if you missed one of the ones from this year. We just finished the elk one a couple weeks ago, and there'll be an antelope one coming up. So trying the species specific. And don't forget, you do get a free Huntinful digital membership just by being an onX Elite member. So you can come on over to the Huntinful website, validate with your onX account, and get entered to win a pretty sweet mule deer hunt, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But definitely don't miss out if you're sitting on the fence about buying an Elite membership, or you already got one and you've never validated your Huntinful membership. Now is the time. It's application season. Okay, so we're going to jump through and answer Q&A as we go. But a couple things that have always stuck out to me about mule deer. My family back generations always grew up mule deer hunting. And what I've found from analyzing some of the best mule deer hunters I know that kill the biggest bucks, they are generally the hunters that are in the field the most. So the more you hunt mule deer, the better chances you have of learning them and finding that big next level buck someday. If you're a fence sitter and you just sit out saying, I'm just going to build points and wait and wait and wait and maybe draw a really good tag, look how many things could change. And that dream may never come to fruition. But those that hunt mule deer every single year, you will see they eventually run into some really big bucks. And pretty soon they got a whole wall of fabulous mule deer. And you say, man, I want that. Well, you can, but you have to hunt them more often. You have to get out. So what are your expectations? Setting reasonable expectations. How far are you willing to travel? Where you live really does matter when you're planning these Western big game hunts. How expensive is it to get there? Can you drive or fly? And then your budget, your wallet. What does that look like? Are you willing to spend a couple $1,000s a year on mule deer tags in other states, actually going on hunts, not just applying? Or is that just not in your budget? Do you have to just pick one and be done for that year? Whatever the reason, there is no excuse to not hunt mule deer every single year somewhere. And let's get you in a rotation and expose some opportunities maybe you haven't thought of so that you can get out. All the deer you see in these pictures here on this slide and in many of our slides tonight are deer that were not taken from trophy top point units. They're not the very best in each of these states. They are opportunist hunts, and eventually you outsmart a big buck and you get lucky. And that's what we're about.
Yeah, pretty much. I think all those bucks you see there on that slide, like Austin mentioned throughout this slideshow, 1 to 3 point hunts. I mean, there's a couple thrown in there that obviously took a few, but that's part of that application strategy you put in place. Like, there's always going to be some voids that you're going to fill throughout the years while you're building in other states that you really can't help but build points or apply for hunts, and you just there's not enough tags to go around in certain states to satisfy that. So we always try and fill some of these in with bucks or hunts that just allow us to go, and maybe we get lucky, maybe we don't, but at least we're in the field trying.
That's right. Let's talk about Colorado first. If you don't think about Colorado when you think of big mule deer, you've probably been living under a rock, right? So Colorado ebbs and flows though, right?
Yeah.
Like we talk about the glory days and when there were big bucks all over and these late season hunts. So break it down a little bit for us. What do you think, Garth? How should someone look at Colorado that's a newer applicant or just has a few points going into it?
I'll give you a quick history. It's not going to be a long one. It's going to go back a ways, but just so we can see the ebbs and flows. So, I mean, somewhere around 2000, they switched all of Colorado to a draw only for mule deer. It got to the point where residents were upset. The hunter satisfaction rating was an all-time low because they issued kind of on the same way they've been issuing elk tags. There was a lot of over-the-counter, first come, first serve. Like they just issued those things like candy. Well, after they went in and instituted a draw, you saw immediate change within the next, say, 10 to 15 years. Colorado had some of the best mule deer hunting that they had seen since the old days, 60s through the 80s. You know, they were crushing giants. They had old mature bucks. Even in units that took 0 points to draw, if you hunted it hard enough, there's a good chance you were going to find a 180 class buck and bigger. So that was at the high. You know, we're talking 2000, I don't know, I'd say 2005 to basically 2012, you had this high. And then then we had a couple winters come in and kind of hurt in certain areas, hurt those areas pretty bad and had some pretty good winter kill. But that's normal. That's nature. What we've seen the last, say, 5 years is a season date change that pushed a lot of these tags back into the rut, and it pushed an overwhelming number of tags into the rut time of year. And these deer became susceptible to harvest, especially the older age class bucks. So now we've got down to the point where it's still, listen, I'm not going to tell you there's not a good opportunity to go out and hunt Colorado. It's the best opportunity, in my opinion, right now going.
For sure.
But you have to take it with a grain of salt. Like there's not big bucks around every corner. You still have the genetics. If one squeaks through there, you could still get to be 200 plus. But guys that sat on the fence for 20 years waiting for that golden opportunity missed the golden years. You know, that we might see that come back around, but at the same sense, that's why you need to be hunting every time or every year you can in Colorado and burn those more often than not. Like we've talked about it here before we got going. The guys that were going on hunts this year with 2-3 points, they were honestly having as good a hunt or opportunity to harvest a mature buck as the guys that waited 17 to 20 years. And Logan, you were in a unit that, you know, arguably used to be one of the best and has probably some of the best genetics in the state. You know, how was the hunting? I mean,
yeah, well, I was in it second season with my kid and then fourth season with a friend, and there wasn't a lot of difference. About the same number of deer, maybe a few different bucks, but all the same caliber. I mean, I got to know everybody down there on that 4-season hunt that was hunting there. And I mean, by the fourth day, there was one guy that had filled up out of 20 of them. And everybody was trying to find a big deer and nobody was finding one. Lots of 160, 165 bucks. Age classes out of a lot of these units. The Colorado Parks and Wildlife, it's what they wanted to do. And they've done a good job of it. They have killed a lot of the mature bucks. A lot of them that are still left were 2x3s, running around chasing does, 280-pound bucks that were breeding all the does. So yeah, it's not what it once was, that's for sure. But it's still a good hunt. It's still a great opportunity hunt. But like Gar said, don't go into it trying to build a bunch of points. Doesn't make any sense. Hunt the muzzleloader hunt the archery if you like to do that. Second rifle. Our second rifle hunts have been our best hunts really the last few years down there.
yeah, that's true. I mean, we talk to hunters every single day. You know, we see photos of guys send them in, and honestly, the second rifle hunts have been producing as good, if not better, than some of the later season ones. Most likely because they get first crack at them. And
Yeah.
you know, so I guess the state of the union right now in Colorado is it's still a great opportunity, but you have to dial back your expectations from what it was years ago.
Yeah.
It's not the good old days when you can hold out and find 180, 190 bucks. Like you can hold out for that if you want, but you better be prepared to go home empty handed and be satisfied with your hunt, you know, and be okay with it. If you're okay with it, great. But one major change that we are going to have this year, if you looking across some of these draw odds from last year, they're going to shift a little bit. They made a change last year to the draw structure in Colorado that's going to change it up. They went from they've always had that 80-20 split for high demand hunts, and obviously they made the rolling average different. If you've kept up with that, you know what I'm talking about. But the split from 65% to 35% resident, non-resident, they changed that to 75-25 for the non-high demand units. So, you know, that took a good chunk, 10% away from non-residents, and kicked that over into the resident corner. So we're going to see some changes for a lot of hunts this year, where, you know, we're going to see a bump up in the amount of points it's going to require to draw some of those tags, and it's going to affect, you know, all the hunts that aren't high demand.
Yeah.
A couple
Yeah.
other things in Colorado, don't just focus on the main draw. So the primary draw is April 2nd is when that's due. You must apply. But if you're going to apply then, also check the secondary draw, which comes up in June. And there'll be a bunch of licenses that roll over to that secondary draw that may be something you're willing to apply for. And then in August, they'll do the reissue list every Wednesday. Any license that's returned, they'll reissue it out, first come, first serve. And there still is a chance at landowner vouchers. Yeah, they cost quite a bit more because you're bypassing the draw. You have to pay a landowner directly for that voucher, but the landowners receive those in their draw so that they can resell them for allowing wildlife on their property. So other opportunities there. There's no excuse to not be going to Colorado this year or very soon.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the other thing we have on there, probably wondering what that engaged CPW is. One quick note on that is this is a different separate website from the Colorado Parks and Wildlife. If you want to stay involved in some of the changes that may happen, because they're going through the season structure for 2025 to 2029 right now. They're also talking about different, like shaking the draw up a little bit in Colorado. You need to go to that website, and that's going to fill you in on all these different committees that they have. And there's some pretty interesting ideas floating around in there on season structures and draw structures going forward. I don't want to dive too far into them now because all these are speculatory at best. They're just talking about these ideas. But go to that Engage CPW website and you can stay involved and see exactly what they're talking about, and you won't be caught off guard.
Logan, real quick, while we're on the topic, you mentioned CPW has accomplished what they wanted to when you were talking about killing the big bucks out. Can you elaborate on that a little bit? Is it just primary for elk, trying to give priority to them, or what do you mean by that?
Well, mainly what I mean by it is they did it for CWD purposes. They wanted to kill. Their studies have shown that mature bucks are testing higher than anything else for CWD. So they figured they'd go in. That's why they push these late seasons and are continuing to push them. Whether it's right or it's wrong, we could spend all night debating that. But that's why they're doing it. They want to harvest mature bucks, mainly in the name of CWD. You know, is why they're doing it, and they've done a good job of it. I'll tip my hat to them, whether I agree with them or not. But they've done a good job. I've seen a huge difference in the last 5 years of hunting down there, and I've been hunting there for a long time.
Yeah.
All right, let's go on to the next state. Montana.
That's Dylan's hometown.
Yeah.
Now, the draw structure in Montana is something to be desired, or leaves a little bit something to be desired. But Montana in general, as far as Montana deer State of the Union, not faring too well. You know, I mean, they're down a little bit as far as deer populations, quality. They never really managed for quality in essence. They have a great opportunity hunts as far as being able to hunt during the rut with a rifle, super long season dates. It is a good opportunity state to go in and get a tag, because you can see right there, you know, 1 point you had a 40% chance of drawing a general license. And realistically, in my opinion, the general license is the best opportunity in Montana right now. The controlled hunts or limited entry hunts are just so far out there, and I don't think like and Dylan can answer this better than I can, but it just doesn't seem to me like, other than one or two, maybe two hunts out there, there's just not enough. The juice isn't worth the squeeze.
Yeah, no, I completely completely agree with that, and I've had a lot of conversations with a lot of different people about it. I personally wish that Montana would have a few more options as far as units and try to manage, because I do think that we could be a state that has a lot higher trophy potential, but as you stated, like it's a opportunity state where you can come find a nice buck to shoot and take him back home wherever your home is. But yeah, I mean, I've drawn one permit in Montana, and it was the hardest permit to get, and it was all the way back when I was 13 years old. So since then, I just keep applying for those one or two that is worth doing. The other thing in Montana is if you draw that, you're secluded to only hunting that specific area. You can't also hunt general. So I've hunted general since, well, when I was 12, and then when I was 14 till now. And unless I draw one of those one or two tags, it's definitely worthwhile just to kind of bank on a general tag.
Yeah.
April 1st, that's the deadline.
Yeah. And I mean, the one thing Montana really has that is nice is their season dates are extremely long. If you get that general deer tag, you can archery. If you don't harvest during archery, you can turn around and then hunt rifle until you harvest your deer. So that is one thing that is nice. I mean, again, we could argue whether it's good or bad, but it is what it is. And if you need that extended time or have time to go back and hunt later, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's good if you got a tag. May not be good if you're a deer, but
Yeah.
No, set your expectations right. As
Yep.
Robert always says, you know, a mature deer just may not be that big, but you're hunting with a rifle in November, it's a good hunt.
Yep.
All right, let's move on to Logan's not favorite state, Idaho. Why don't you like Idaho, Logan?
I love it. It's right here close to me. It's been really good to me over the years, but they're frustrating to deal with. You know, they just want to sell tags is what they want to do, and they're good at it. Uh, you know,
Yeah,
yeah,
that image you see right there. I mean, for anyone that hasn't participated in the first come first serve on December 1, if you have, you're very familiar with that image.
yes,
If you haven't, you're probably wondering. But the way they issue those first come first serve tags has been extremely, extremely disappointing for non-residents. It's been frustrating at best.
yes, yeah, especially for the most sought after tags. As always, it wasn't that long ago. I could go and hunt for deer in Idaho, harvest one in October, run over to the local town and buy me another one and be hunting again that same day. You know, those days are past, that's for sure.
So if all things stay the same, you have your general tags, which are over the counter for residents, but non-residents must buy them either in person at a vendor or online. This year will be December 2nd, which falls on Monday. Unless they change it. That's why I put those asterisks there. The legislature could blow that whole thing up and rotate it to a draw. That's yet to be determined.
Yes, there's a bill in the House right now. They're debating it this week. So
So stay tuned for that.
Fingers crossed they do the right thing.
yeah, I don't know what the right thing is though. So there's good and bad with both of those.
Yep. If you go controlled tags, so that is a draw tag, you can apply for those, and that's June 5th. So you don't have to have a general tag to apply for a controlled. You can
Yep.
simply buy the $200 non-refundable license and apply for a controlled tag by June 5th. There's no points. Everybody's random. Everybody's equal. And you just have to decide what unit you're looking for, whether it's archery hunt, there's muzzleloader hunts, rifle hunts. But there are still some good hunts in there you can get. Generally speaking, the eastern half of Idaho, the deer herds have struggled. Couple bad winters, one after another, it's just been tough on them. So deer numbers are down, but generally a controlled hunt's going to be a better experience with a lot less hunters in the field. And the season dates often run later into November, so you have a chance to hunt the rut.
Yeah, if you did secure one of those general deer tags or something like that, you're still eligible to apply for a controlled hunt. If you draw it, you can just turn it back in or turn your general tag in, and then you accept your controlled hunt. Now, it makes the sting a little bit better if you've already bought that hunting license, or a little bit less, because that $200 non-refundable license, if you don't draw, you just got a hunting license, you
Yep.
know,
Right.
you don't get much.
Yeah. So Idaho's still on our list, but control your expectations there. It used to be our go-to for getting a general over-the-counter deer tag. It was easy. You could buy one every year. They were $300, and it's shifting, right? As they take this, well, the deer herd went down. Now they're made it harder to get a general tag, and now it may go to a draw completely, and we'll have to revisit that next year if that House bill passes.
Yes.
All right, Nevada, one state south. The state gets expensive when you're applying, but if you are interested in chasing deer in Nevada, keep in mind, Nevada's got huge trophy potential. They kill some of the best animals in the West, but they have the fewest tags out of anywhere. So there are very few tags for all species. There's, what do they say? There's more wild horses in Nevada than there are deer, elk, sheep, and antelope combined.
Yeah.
So they're losing habitat like crazy thanks to the Wild Mustang and Burro Act. But the deer that have survived, they have great genetics. And so you can hunt everything from 12,000-foot peaks above timber down to desert country close to Las Vegas for mule deer, and everywhere in between. All tags are managed through the draw, no over the counter. So you must apply by that first week in May. And it does use bonus points, so there's no guaranteed. You just get better odds as you go. But if you can stomach the fees of buying a license and applying, Nevada does have good opportunities, especially for archery hunters. Archery hunts are pretty easy to draw for deer in a lot of units. If you're willing to work hard and have a deer tag in your pocket, with the chance of a good buck popping out, Nevada should probably be on your radar. If you just want to sit out and wait for a trophy muzzleloader or rifle tag, realize you may never draw if you're starting out right now.
Yeah, and even if you started out 15 years ago, if you're going after the best of the best, you still might not. I mean, realistically, I would rather go into Nevada with very few points and not have that hanging over my head, thinking that Nevada owed me something because I had 20 points. Because I don't care where you go there, it's still going to be a tough hunt. Even in those units where they're killing those giants, there is a lot of hunters that went into that same area that wondered what in the heck was going on.
Yeah.
Like why it took so many points to draw that, because they probably saw a handful of deer. So use that state as a draw more often state if you can, because don't be like me and have 20 something points hanging over your head when you draw that tag and realize, holy crap, like what was I waiting for?
Yeah, in the time it takes you to draw a decent Nevada deer tag, you could have gone to Colorado 4 or 5 times and hunted more often.
Yeah, and in the like Robert's buck right there that he shot, that's in a unit that's relatively easy to draw. I mean, that for an early rifle hunt, which I think is the one he went on and shot. I mean, you got pretty good odds of drawing that tag with 6 or 7 points. Archery, I think you can get that every couple of years, if not every year.
Yeah.
So it proves that there is some great bucks in some of these units that are more easily drawn. It's just, you got to be willing to grind that hunt out.
It's more of a desert unit. It's these island mountains that are tough to hunt. Water is a big deal on drought years. They really struggle and will lose a ton of fawns, a ton of recruitment. And then on good moisture years, they blossom.
Yep.
All right, let's bring it home, Garth. Back here to Utah.
Good old Utah. Now, Utah is a state that I like to say double dips, because they have a general deer hunt that they manage for lower buck to doe ratios, and they also have a limited entry, similar to Idaho. You know, they're double dipping a little bit, but they use different preference point systems. Like the general is all preference, like Colorado. Like you either have the amount of points to draw that hunt or you don't, but it clears that point pool out on a more regular basis. So it keeps those points lower. 0 to 6 it's a good ballpark. I would say 2 to 6 is probably more in line, because there's a few units that still take 0 points, especially for archery. But but you're hunting, you're hunting lower age class bucks. I mean, they have good deer populations in most of those areas. You're going to see plenty of deer. That's not an issue. But if you are looking for a mature buck, it's going to be tough. Like you better be willing to pass on a lot of forkies and 3 points and 3-year-old type deer to get to that next level. The limited hunts are the tough one for non-residents. The really tough ones that I see, because this point system is so mature, and since they allowed non-residents to apply for all species, what was that, 16 years ago or somewhere right in there? It's hard. I'm going to tell somebody that is a long-term draw process. Similar to Nevada, if you start applying now, you may never get that tag. There is random tags, 50% go to the top point holders and 50% go to the random draw. You do get extra chances for those points you get, but now you're in the same thing as Nevada. Like, it's you against the field at that point, so even if you have one under max to draw, so you got 20 points at 21, well, that's just 20 extra chances in a field of 500 applicants that had umpteen chances too. So they do have great mule deer here. If you do draw one of those hunts, I mean, that was a limited entry hunt that one of our guys drew last year. Josh took that awesome buck on a limited entry unit. So there is good quality if you draw the tag, but I just want to caution everyone going into it. You're on an uphill climb.
Yeah. But you can play in both fields, like you said. You can build your limited points and build general points and be hunting general while you're still building those limited points. Yeah. So general is a great opportunity to get out. Right? That's what it is.
Yeah. And like proof product, like the buck that we saw earlier that I harvested, the archery buck, that was a general season buck. Mm-hmm. The buck in velvet that we had on the front of that slide, that was a general season buck. There are some quality bucks in these general season units, but it takes a while. I mean, I've hunted these areas for a long time, like born and raised here, so they're there.
I'm in the field.
For sure.
More tags.
Yep.
Look at Garth with his Arizona buck.
That's one of the ones when I say, you know what? Some of these slides took a pile of points to get. That's one of them. I mean, I kind of overspent my points on that a little bit. I had 21 points going into it. And I applied for a hunt that took 14 the year prior. But that being said, that point system worked to my advantage. It allowed me the opportunity to have a couple choices, and I was fortunate enough to get lucky and find a nice buck that fit the bill.
Yep.
But Arizona does not have a ton of opportunities for what I would say trophy type hunts. Like, they just don't have very many units. I want to say is there 5 or 6 units that are actually managed under the alternative structure, where they actually manage for a higher buck to doe ratio. There's just not that many. Most of them are north of the Colorado River with a couple south. But honestly, the good thing about it is they have different options. You have archery hunts, early rifle hunts, late rifle hunts. So you have some options there where you can kind of key in and dive into something that maybe doesn't take as many points. But the way it is, they have a preference. 50% of those will go to top point holders. 50% will go to random. So you always have a chance regardless. Right. That's what's nice. So just be a little cautious when it comes to these, if you're going for mule deer and you're going for these trophy bucks that Arizona is capable of producing, just know that it's going to be a long haul.
Yeah. Like I apply for elk every year, so I already buy my license. So it didn't cost me much more to apply for deer too.
Yep.
So that's one strategy that I use, and there's always a chance. You never know.
Always a chance. If you do have that license and you want to go over the counter, if you're an archery hunter, opportunities do open up. So there's a quota for those over the counter archery non-resident tags, and they'll go on sale. This last year they went on sale in early November. They sold out the same day. But if you can get one of those, then you can hunt a lot of different units, mostly desert units in the southern half of the state, for mule deer or coos deer. And that's something you can do. You just got to plan early and get that $300 tag in your pocket. Some people might say, why'd you choose these states that we've talked about up till now, and including Arizona? And a big part of that is the amount of public land that's accessible. Yep. Right? this slideshow would be different if we were just buying guided hunts on private land. You know,
Right.
we're mainly focusing on the states that a guy can draw a permit, get his onX downloaded, and go find a public or accessible piece of land to hunt. That's a big part for us. It's a different game if you're just buying hunts, but we're trying to do it the cheap way. We're trying to draw tags, be strategic, go more often, hunt on public land, and eventually get lucky.
Yeah. And one thing worth mentioning on Arizona, I wouldn't say it's a double dip state, but they do have other units that are managed for lower buck to doe ratios. You can get in and draw some of those units with 5 to 7 points for a rifle tag.
Sure.
It's probably not a state I would say you're getting the best bang for your buck for those hunts, but it does allow another opportunity if you just want to burn those points and go on a deer hunt, build a couple up. Like Logan said, if you're already applying for another species there, build a few points up, put in for one of their lower, their units that are managed for a lower age class, and go. There's still a bunch of different units down there that hold good populations of mule deer. It's just, the higher end bucks are not readily available.
Yeah. You're chasing something that everybody wants that hunts the West, right? Elk is very iconic, and we get probably more questions about elk than anything. But mule deer is right there with it. And so to shoot a mature mule deer buck on public land, it's difficult. There's just not enough deer. There's not enough permits to go around for everybody. And so we got to play the game a little bit.
Yeah.
New Mexico, an interesting state to include here because we don't talk as much about New Mexico mule deer, but it is a random draw with no points associated. So it is attractive to someone that's new, doesn't have a bunch of points built up in other states because everybody's equal in the New Mexico draw. So there are some good opportunities to hunt, not giant trophy deer per se. It's not a gimme, but there are some good ops to go.
Yeah, there's some units down there, obviously, in the northern part of the state that have the potential to spit out some giant bucks. They will every single year, but I would say those populations aren't strong. I mean, they have a couple units up there where they have strong populations, but they issue a fair number of tags. Technology has kind of surpassed what that threshold is to continue having mature bucks in some of those areas. But you have the same chance as everyone else. That's what's nice. I mean, they do have trophy areas. It's almost similar to like Arizona when you take that breakdown, is you have some central to southern units that you can get in and actually have pretty good draw odds. They have similar season dates for the archery, like the over-the-counter archery in Arizona. The difference is you have to apply in New Mexico to get those archery permits. But they're pretty easy to draw. I mean, upwards of 30 to 60% draw odds, some of them guaranteed. You're hunting desert mule deer. The genetics aren't the same. You don't see the same, you don't see that same level of buck that you would see up on the northern border near Colorado. But it's an opportunity. Like, it's a good opportunity to go out, get a tag in your pocket, hunt mule deer, get some experience under your belt in preparation for maybe some of these other states where you are building points and you're trying to get a little better tag.
Yeah. Yep. Perfect opportunity again. If you're already applying, you just well put in for it if you got the time to hunt it.
Yep.
Right. Let's jump up north to Wyoming. Logan, how's the winter up there?
It's pretty nice right now. It's been a mild winter. It's not even hardly winter compared to last year. So we are happy about that. So, but unfortunately the damage has been done, especially here in the western side of the state. And it's gonna, especially for non-residents, it's gonna get hard to draw. I've been talking to a lot of biologists the last couple of weeks, and everybody has the same bad news that things are, counts are down significantly. Anywhere from 55 to 65% of the herd was lost last winter on this western side, and we're going to see some tag reductions. And usually the non-residents are the ones that get picked on when that happens. Yeah. So shortened seasons are other proposals that are coming down the pipe. They got to do something. So, and that's what we're going to see probably for 2024.
And Wyoming, the one thing about it, it is a preference. Well, it's majority preference state. 75% of those tags will go to a preference draw, but you still have a chance. 25% of them will go in the random, and it's a pure random. Those points don't mean anything in that random draw. So it is that system is good because it'll clear a lot of guys out, but then they still have a chance. So I mean, if you're looking at it and you're like, I know the odds are stacked against me, but you want to have a chance at a tag, throw in for it. I mean, the one thing we're looking at this year with that fee increase, I mean, they jumped that special deer up to $1,200, and that's up from what, 7 something?
6 something.
So you get up to that $1,200, there might be an opportunity to put in for some of those special deer area, or put in for the special draw in some of those deer areas. Maybe you got a better shot at drawing a random tag because there's fewer applicants.
Right.
You never know. I mean, that's a lot of money to be dumping on just a tag. That has to be the most expensive deer tag in the West.
1,215.
Yeah, you bet. There's lots of, like Wyoming does theirs, a lot of theirs in regions. They have their limited quota areas or units, and then they have a lot of regions. And if a guy just wants to hunt deer, there's a lot of regions he can draw with 0, 1, 2 points. So get out and hunt them every year. That have, as long as you stay away from like regions A, B, and C on the east side of the state that are the majority are private ground, unless you have access to private ground, they're pretty awesome. But you stay on the western side of the state, you can have good hunts every couple of years and be out. You're probably not going to be hunting 180 plus bucks, but you're going to be out hunting mule deer and having a good time and probably filling a tag. There's still plenty of deer out there. So.
For sure. So your best 2 resources for this. So you're going to use the onX research tools. You want to pull the draw odds so you can see what we're talking about. I've screenshotted some top rut draw odds here so you can see how to find hunts that even fall in if you've got 1 or 2 Wyoming deer points. And then you got to look at your maps and see, is this something where I could hunt? Can I access this? Can I hike back in? Does it work for me? Like, there's a lot of research you can do there. And so take your free digital Huntinful membership and open up our May magazine that'll be coming out in a couple months. And we're going to go through all those units and tell you what to expect and tell you what it's going to look like going into the draw. And so you can decide, this meets my expectations, check your draw odds, and then decide on a hunt. There's not one answer that we can give you for every hunter because all your expectations are different. Your point levels are different and your budget is different. But we want to show you the resources on how to find it, what's the whole state of Wyoming, and then you can decide on a hunt that fits you.
And that $41 a year, that is kind of nice because it's pretty reasonable to just get a point during the points only period. And just remember, if you do apply for Wyoming, it is about the only state that if you apply and are unsuccessful, they don't automatically issue you a point.
Yep.
You will have to go back in and buy that point during the points only period from July to September in order to gain that point. But $41 is pretty reasonable. So if you're just looking at building points for now, for later, you can just buy those and you don't even have to apply in the draw.
Yeah.
Right. All right. That covers Wyoming. Anything else on Wyoming for us, Logan?
No, I wish I had better news. Everybody get lots of calls on G&H. I live here in G, have my whole life, and it's I'm getting a lot of calls. Is it worth the points right now? A lot of it will depend on what they do with the seasons. If they shorten these seasons to 5, 6, 7 days, well, I'd have a tough time burning 10 plus points on it until they made some serious adjustments, mainly by regulating the residents. And I mean, I hate to say that up here. I've almost not made it out of a couple of meetings mentioning that up here, but something needs to be done. The time's here. Mother Nature finally was the straw that broke the camel's back. And I mean, the Wyoming range deer herd lost 2/3 of their deer last winter. It was a tough thing to watch, and there'll be some big bucks this year. We have some good bucks out on the winter range that survived, and you'll see some good deer killed in G&H this year. But there's not going to be very many of them just because there's not many deer, and still be a lot of hunting pressure. You're going to have me and every other Tom, Dick, and Harry that lives up here out there on the mountain. So,
and so we want to watch what comes out of the April commission meetings there. and don't apply till later before the
Yeah.
deadline. Is that
Don't apply till in May for sure. That commission meeting is the 16th and 17th, and yeah, I've been in contact with all the commissioners, trying to give them suggestions, and yeah, I anybody that's got points and has been looking to hunt G or H, get involved, reach out to those commissioners, give them some ideas. Yeah, it's gonna get tough, that's for sure. I wouldn't be surprised if they cut down the non-resident G tags down to 200 or something.
Hmm.
all right? Well, on that happy note, a couple other states to consider. We're not going to go into too much depth here, but Nebraska, North Dakota, South Dakota, archery is still going to be your best opportunity out there. Easier to get the tags. Private land is, of course, the biggest issue. So we cover those states a little bit later in our summer magazines that we come out from Huntin' Full. But if you're looking for more opportunities to put tags in your pocket and not hunt in, big mountainous country, I would definitely look into that Dakota country.
Yeah, especially if you're coming from the Midwest. Shorter drive.
It's not as far. That's right. If you are looking to go south of the border and your wife will sign off on your vacation plans and a blank check, you can obviously go to Mexico. Mexico's talked, it's highly sought after. I personally was always like, I'm going to push that off. Someday I'll have the money to hunt in Mexico. And that's when deer hunts were 5,000 and 6,000. Now deer hunts are more like 15,000 to 17,000 or more to shoot one mule deer. So Mexico has priced a lot of us out because you have to go guided. It's all run private land. It's not public. So I would throw that in there, but it's definitely a rich man sport now.
I will say this about Mexico. The one thing that when you look at bucks like that Josh took down there, the price increase is somewhat reflective of the demand, where they price people out, but some of it has to do with a lot of the upgrades they're doing on these ranches. Like they're going through and putting water lines in, feeding a lot of these animals so that you can keep them in there. You look at that country, it's desert. There's not a lot of feed down there. They're very susceptible to drought, and they want to mitigate that by putting in some type of feeding and watering programs. So they have put a lot into there and leases. I mean, but you're right. It's going down the same road as some of these other ones, like Doll Sheep and everything else. Like you wished you would have done it 10 years ago because it just keeps going up.
Yep, for sure. It's a fun hunt. If you're looking for a vacation to go with some of your buddies and been wanting to do something like that, I highly recommend it. Been fortunate enough to do it a few times, and man, it's sure a lot of fun. I love getting out of here in January when it's cold and snowy and going down there for 10 days. So yeah, and hunting big mule deer. So it is a fun experience, but it has gotten really expensive.
Okay, so we'll show that big buck. Now go to our next slide and talk about some of the things we've touched on.
Yeah.
But I want to talk a little bit more about what really affects mule deer. Like there's speculation that someday mule deer may not be as prevalent as they are across the West. Like they are a resilient animal, but we lose thousands and thousands of them in one little area on a bad winter.
Yeah.
We're building houses where they used to winter all over the West. Everybody wants to move to Idaho and Utah, and they want to live in the winter range, right? And so we kick the mule deer out. Do other species push them out? Predators, controlling predators. Like there's no silver bullet to solve the mule deer decline, but we are trying to do as much as we can.
Well, more people. I mean, you're losing them. You're losing it to houses, but you also putting roads in, more traffic on the highways. All these deer have to migrate migrate down from their summer ranges, their winter ranges. Highway mortality is a big issue. Yeah, there's just, I wish there wasn't, they weren't getting picked on so bad, but with all these improvements and population spikes and things like that, they've got a lot of things stacked against them right now.
They do. They're kind of the stepchild right now. Up in this country, our elk numbers are they're exploding. And these elks, last winter was a perfect example. Those elk all went to the winter ranges where the deer normally are because the snow got bad enough, and they just kept moving and pushed the deer out. And it was tough on the deer. Predators, when I was a kid, we didn't see much from mountain lions in this country. And man, we're filling quotas left and right, hand over fist up here now. And so there's a lot of things against them for sure. They got things against them 365. It's just not hunting, but I think there's places that hunting pressure is tough on them as well. So.
For sure. It's kind of the straw that breaks a camel's back usually. It's not the primary deterrent for some of these dwindling populations. But if it gets bad enough, we definitely have to check ourselves for sure.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to cover there? CWD, your favorite topic?
Well, I mean, that's the bad thing. Any type of disease that comes through there is always going to be hard on them. I mean, they're not susceptible to blue tongue and some of that stuff, but they will succumb to that. I mean, it was an issue in some of the central Wyoming stuff. Whitetails are usually more prone to that, but CWD is the one that's been thrown out there now more than anything. And like we touched on in Colorado, a lot of these states I'm sure they have good intentions for it, but I think the bottom line is there's a lot of speculation with how to control that CWD and just how devastating it has the potential of being. And there's a lot of unknowns with that. And I think they're just trying to throw darts and just see what sticks, and maybe one of these practices that they're going to try and institute is going to help, but I don't think they know.
Yeah. Yep. No, it's a tough topic for sure right now. And it's something that everybody wants to hunt deer, elk. They better stay involved with, keep an eye on it, because there's some big proposals, just even up here to change things big time. Yeah, it could change the way we draw tags, hunt, or we're able to hunt, when we're able to hunt. Yeah, nothing's off the table right now when it comes to CWD.
Yep. Scary. All right, we used this picture before. There's always a chance.
Mm-hmm.
So the random draw, don't just build points and sit out. If there is a random element, meaning you could draw your first year or your second year or whatever year when you apply, definitely apply in the random draw. Put yourself out there and try.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, like in Colorado, currently, if you're below that preference point line where that unit doesn't draw below that amount of preference points, you have no chance. So you are drawing dead, as we call it. And that can be true for some Oregon hunts and some Wyoming hunts for deer where there's low enough license numbers that nothing rolls over into the random. So make sure you're not putting in for a 0% unit. Make sure you're putting in for something where there is some level of chance.
And that's the one nice thing about Huntin. We cover a lot of that in the magazine. And with your digital membership, you can grab that eMag and just look in there, especially Wyoming, and just see, hey, this is how many tags were actually issued in the random last year. And you'll see a lot of boxes say no tags, no non-resident tags. And so steer clear of those ones.
Steer clear. If you're like, well, this draw is just too much for me, where can I go and just get a hunt? And what are my other options outside of these lottery draw systems out west? You still have landowner vouchers, like we mentioned in Colorado. There's also some in Nevada and Utah. Those two states are going to be substantially more expensive than Colorado, but Colorado, you can still find some reasonably priced vouchers. Obviously, you can put guided hunts that will come with a guaranteed draw tag across many states. And you can just book a hunt and go and experience mule deer hunting. Don't forget about super tag and raffle draws. That's where you've got a chance. You buy a raffle ticket, goes towards conservation. And man, if your number comes up and you get super lucky, there's nothing wrong with throwing a few dollars towards those raffles. Never expecting to draw, but it goes to a good place. I don't play in all of them. You can't possibly play in every raffle, but you play in the ones that would be super cool if you did get drawn, right? And obviously there's reservation hunts, not as many for deer as there is for elk, but there are some reservation land hunts and auction permits, of course, if you're just trying to get a tag. So we'll wrap up here with some suggestions, final suggestions for mule deer.
Well, some of these come off, are pretty self-explanatory. Like, you have to set a budget for what you're looking for. The big thing is when you're setting that budget, plan out the years, do a little bit of research, call us, let us know what your goals are. We can kind of go through that where you're not just blowing money in some states that you may never have the chance of drawing the tag you're looking for. Like, be a little strategic about it when you build that budget and put that money to some good use where you can actually capitalize on your investment. Once you get that put together, I mean, you can kind of, I wouldn't want to say autopilot, still have to check in on it, but you can kind of just go from there, and let us help you. I mean, that's the beauty about Huntin' Fool is, if you do get something drawn, while you're trying to accumulate points just randomly, or if it's something you've been planning on. I mean, we have hundreds and thousands of members that have drawn tags all out through the West that we can kind of lean on a little bit. And, you can lean on them. They leaned on someone when they had the tag. You can lean on them when you have the tag and get a little bit of heads up, a little bit of information, maybe some starting points that you can look at. So you're not totally in the dark, so that's one really big thing that Huntin' Fool has. And if it's all too complicated for you, we have an application service, and what I like to say to most guys that are looking into that, if you don't have the time and you want to get in there, if you've got more money than you do time, that's where we come in. And basically we can handle your applications for you. We go in and we build, we talk to you, we build out your strategy, however far out that wants to be. And we can institute that and make sure you don't miss out on any draws. You gain your points. You're in for the best hunts. You're in for the right hunts for you. So if you've got more money than time, definitely, like, that's where we can come in and help.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd add to that just a little bit. When you do your application strategy, everybody's going to be different. Talk to different guys every day. If you want to hunt every year, I just talked to some guys today. They want to try to hunt out west every year, and yeah, awesome. Let's try to get that accomplished. By multiple states, multiple species, everything like that. And then there's just some states you're just gonna have to build points in for a while and be in it for the long haul. And if that's what you want to do, great. If you don't, maybe not waste the money there too.
Yeah, that's right. Like we've mentioned before, if you have an onX Elite membership, you get that free membership on the left, the digital and all those benefits included. If you want to upgrade to one of our other memberships to get one-on-one consultations or the printed magazine 12 times a year, we've got a discount there for onX members. So pretty good deal.
Yeah.
And Dylan's going to tell us about another giveaway.
I like it.
Yep. So we are going to be giving away some free consultations. And so this is kind of like, excuse me if I misspeak on this, but kind of like the all access pass, right? Like, I call Garth or I call Logan and this is how many points I have. And here's the 3 units I've been looking at. And here's the type of hunt I want to do. And it's really like that consultation where it helps you narrow in, or that's how I've used it in the past anyways. Help me narrow in from, okay, here's 3 or 4 units that I want to look at, and here's what I have in mind. And then using their expertise, odds are they've either hunted those said units, or they know somebody who has and can give you that real knowledgeable insight about like where's going to be the best use of your points, etc. So we're going to be giving away some free consultations. I should say Huntin' Fool is going to be giving them away because you're going to be calling them with your questions, not myself. So we dropped the link below. It takes 2 seconds to get entered on that. You got some pretty dang good odds. So we're going to be picking 5 of those folks and get you linked up with the folks over at Huntin' Fool. So definitely throw your name in that hat.
Yeah. So we are giving away a mule deer hunt for 2. And it's a totally free entry. Anybody who's onX Elite comes over and validates their Huntin' Fool free membership. Can't emphasize free enough on that side. Then you can enter for free to win a mule deer hunt in Montana for 2. March 15th is that deadline. And all those details are on our website as well. So you definitely need to do that. And we're going to open it up to some questions now. We got a few minutes and we'll take whatever you guys got on your end, Dylan, and go from there.
Cool. Sounds good. Yeah. In the meantime, we'll try to find the link for the Montana mule deer hunt giveaway and throw that in as well. Throw your name in that hat. You and a lucky buddy or whoever you choose to come to Montana with you will be hunting mule deer in the rut this coming fall. So make sure to get signed up for that. Google it. You can find it pretty easily. And like I said, we'll try to throw a link in the chat for the mule deer hunt. So we've got a short list of questions here. I know these guys did a really good job answering a lot of questions throughout the presentation and also tailoring the presentation for the questions that you guys pre-asked. So I've got a short list here, and then Austin, if you guys have any more on your end, we can dive in to those. One of those here, new non-resident percents in Colorado make point creep worse, or do you think the applicants might tend to cash in their points sooner? So with the different percentages for non-res, do you think point creep is gonna get more prevalent?
I would say definitely. I mean, any decrease to that amount of tags that are going out into non-resident hands, it's definitely going to increase point creep. It's going to make it worse. There's always going to be, units that are worse than others for that. But yeah, you'll see it. People may take that and say, I'm going to cash them in now and get out. I mean, I'm fortunate enough to talk to quite a few people, and I'll be honest, most of them are like, I think I might hold on because it's not like Colorado's at a high point right now. They're kind of at a low point for mature bucks, and most guys, they're wanting to have a chance of a mature buck. So they might hold. I mean, it's going to be tricky to see. I mean, I'll be honest. Some of the things they're talking about changing the draw totally in that engaged CPW, and some of those draw committees that could really force people to put in if they go through with some of those.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Point creep's not going anywhere. It's gonna continue to trend up, and with them taking non-resident tags away, I mean, the majority of us are still gonna apply. I threaten every year when I'm down there for season that I'm out in Colorado, and I turn around and apply again. So
Yeah.
we're just gonna keep applying. So
Got another one here. Which Western state has the earliest draw? So I'm assuming that they're referring to the actual draw to where you know if you're going hunting this fall or not, but um, might also be referring to draw deadline or application deadline.
Yeah, generally the earliest where we start thinking about mule deer is December 1st or 2nd for the Idaho general tags. That's kind of like your first planning for next year phase. So that's the earliest one I would say to keep note of is the 1st of December. And then December 31st is the deadline to buy a Montana preference point. So that's kind of your second thing when you're thinking a year ahead that you got to be aware of and buy that $100 general preference point if you plan to hunt in Montana the following year. So those two things happen before the new year. And then when you get into like what's the first real draw that's coming up for deer, it's probably going to be New Mexico.
It has to be New Mexico.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the first one.
And the bad thing is after that, it's like you get a bunch of them sandwiched together.
Right.
There towards the tail end of May, June that are just boom, 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 just stacking in there.
Yeah, and the bad thing about it for a guy that just wants one hunt, you're gonna have to be pretty tricky about how you do it. I just put in for all of them, hope for the best. There's been a few years I had too many tags, but yeah. But if you only got a certain amount of time to come out and hunt, you got to be pretty strategic about how you put in, because if you end up drawing 2 or 3 tags and they're all spaced out, work may not be real happy, and mama may not be happy.
That's right. That's right. Yep.
This is a good question here. Can you explain what the buck to doe ratio indicates and what sort of numbers should I be looking for in a good unit?
So the buck to doe ratio, basically when the states go out and classify these units, they'll take and typically they do this on the winter range. They'll see how many bucks how many bucks they count and how many does they count, and that ratio is going to be somewhere in that. I mean, for a healthy, I would say for something that's 20 plus, I mean, a lot of these states are in the 30 range, for some of these units that they're really managing for great buck to doe ratios. Anytime I see something that's 25 to me, I'm like, okay, there's a pretty solid chance for a mature buck in there. If I've got a quarter of those animals that I view are going to be bucks, and that's not necessarily how it works, but a high buck to doe percentage to me is going to be 25 plus. There's a lot of the general season units in Utah that are managed for 18 to 20, 17, 15 to 17. I mean, there's still mature bucks in there, but boy, you're sorting through a lot of younger age class to get to that next level. So 25 plus to me is what I look for. If it has that, great. But I always take it with a grain of salt because again, you're relying on a classification or a count that happened in a predetermined location that they go back to year after year after year, and sometimes they'll expand that, but it's not an exact science. So always take it with a grain of salt.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. I'd agree with Garth. Somewhere's in that 25 plus. We've been fortunate enough to have 40, 42 up here. That's what we had in 2022 in Region G. Now we're down to about 19, after the winter.
All right, I got one more here, and then if you guys have any on your end, I know you guys did a good job of answering some on the go. This one I know you guys have covered several times, but I do think it's important enough to ask the question again just to reiterate the answer. So, as a mule deer rookie, what's more important, trying to get hunts under your belt or building points? And obviously, you guys have hit it several times. It's get out in the field with as many tags and opportunities as possible. And I mean, for me, that's one of the biggest things that I personally learned working with you guys over the last several years is not to hang on to points too much. Again, went to Colorado on like a 1 or 2 point unit last year, had one of my most fun, best times mule deer hunting. And without that knowledge and expertise from you guys, I probably would have waited 10 to 12 years before really looking at that hunt in Colorado once I've accumulated those points. So yeah, I mean, anything to expand? I know you guys have answered that a couple of times.
One key thing I would say too on that is a lot of times what we're seeing with Point Creek nowadays across the West is just because you wait longer and accumulate more points doesn't necessarily correlate with you drawing a different tag or a different unit than you could have 5, 6 years prior. It seems like a lot of times we're just keeping pace. There's states like Wyoming and Colorado that have enough options out there that there's there you can get a better unit, but keep that in mind as you might just be staying pace with what you could already draw.
Yeah, I would say both. I've tried to get a lot of experience and build points in a few places. And you get some points built up here and it doesn't look like you're going to draw anywhere else for the year. Cash them in, burn them. You got 7, 10, 12 points, whatever it may be. Cash them in on something, go hunt that while you're building points in other states. It's basically what we have to do now. It's unfortunate, but you got to stay on top of it because it isn't going to get any easier.
That's right. And just another plug on why you shouldn't wait. The way that these states are fighting predator management definitely scares me, with what's going on with ballot box biology, as they call it, with Colorado. They've got wolves reintroduced, which that's going to take a while before they are a problem, but they're trying to get mountain lion hunting off the table again. And they've got some serious backing behind it. So as hunters, we can't just sit back and say, well, I bought my license or my points, I'm good. You got to get involved. You got to donate to some of these other groups. We got to voice and write your comments of support. It stinks sometimes, but they are trying to shut us down, and they would be fine with no deer and no mountain lions, because that's what would happen if you got rid of the deer. You get rid of the mountain lions too, and then they're left with nothing except their iPhones and their lattes, I guess.
Yeah, it is an unfortunate thing. I mean, they tried that in Arizona. I think they tried it numerous times on Arizona for mountain lion. It's just, they know it's a means to an end. They get the predators on the top of the food chain. I mean, they already are, but then if there's no hunting for them, basically we're going to get the ebb and flow, and it's going to hit a downturn. And
That's right.
Hunting, well, there won't be an excess number of animals to harvest.
Yeah.
That's right.
There is one more question, Nicholas. I've seen you ask a couple times, so I'll dance around it without trying to give away where I hunt in Montana. But as a Montana resident, where would you go to try to find a large deer? Honestly, I've hunted a lot of Montana. I'm from Eastern Montana. I now live in Western Montana. The state as a whole, I know we covered it earlier on. In the woods is a great answer. Yes, in the woods. But the state as a whole, like I think Montana bucks want to grow to be big. I think there's some really good quality potential. I think a lot of them get shot when they're too young. But with all that being said, like I've hunted from Eastern Montana to Western Montana, found good bucks everywhere in between. Um, I really think like, not to turn this into an onX plug, use the maps, use different layers, try to find where there's going to be less and less hunting pressure. And that's where those older, more mature deer are going to end up. I found success in the past by hunting close to private and looking for smaller tracts of public. So don't just look at a map and say, okay, there's 50 sections of public here. I'm going to go right in the middle of that. Well, that's where everybody else is going to. Find maybe a half a section or something, or Montana block management. It's private property. They allow you to hunt, especially if it's a newer piece of block management. Maybe that place was leased out and they were very selective on the deer they were shooting, or maybe they just didn't allow hunting for the last X number of years. Now they're in the block management program. If you can get on that before it gets too bad, you've got some good opportunity to find an older age class buck. So, I mean, honestly, it could be any part of the state. You just kind of gotta get a little crafty with the map and dig one out.
Yeah. I know, Dylan, we had a question, came up a couple times about California. Why do we not talk about California mule deer hunting? And I think it's important to keep in mind, we definitely look at these states that we recommend based on a non-resident perspective. So I'm not going to tell you don't hunt your home state, because your home state's awesome. It's the cheapest. It's the closest. Go hunt your home state. If you live in California, you should be hunting deer there every year. But as a non-resident, I would never tell you to go apply in California over going to Colorado. So it's not even close. The very best draw hunts in California of waiting 20 years to draw are not even going to hold a candle to a Colorado easy to get hunt.
Yeah.
So that's why we leave out some of those states. You didn't see us talk much about Oregon or Washington. We do cover those states in our summer magazines because there are some good opportunities there, especially with archery equipment. But generally from a non-resident perspective, I'm not going to tell you to apply in Washington for deer or California for deer. It's just not on the list.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
So that's it for questions on mine, unless you have any that you haven't covered yet, Austin.
I don't think so.
Cool. So reminder again, we just threw away the giveaway link in the bottom. If you guys are here, throw your name in that hat. I guarantee it's going to be super, super beneficial to you if you win that and you're able to jump on the phone and pick these guys' brain a little bit more on more specific questions, specific units. Obviously on things like this, we don't want to say, hey, here's the top unit. If you've got 2 points in Colorado, then everybody's applying for that, and then it's a 8-point unit. So those type of questions can be a little bit more pointed if you win that. And yeah, thank you guys. Thank you, Huntinful, for your time tonight and all the wisdom and information. And thank you to all the listeners and everybody on that took the time. And hopefully you guys do good in the draw and you get to hunt some big mule deer this year.
Good luck, guys.
Yeah,
Yeah,
have fun
good
out
luck to
there.
your draws.